Home is where your heart is. At least that's what they say. But home is many things to many people. To some, it's comfort. To others, it's stability. But for the purposes of this story, home is a place where you are safe. This is a story about home and the leaving of it. It is a story about the perils of leaving one's comfort zone. This is a story about surrounding oneself with high-powered munitions, capable of obliterating the enemies that assail you from all sides. This is the story of the nest. The Engineer, or NG if you're nasty, is the premier builder class of Brotato. He starts off with what will be one of many wrenches, enjoys a nice 25% bonus to engineering upgrades, and begins the game with a plus 10 in engineering. The trade-off for these bonuses is that he receives 50% decrease in damage upgrades. But where this class really shines is not in its numerical bonuses, but in its spatial capabilities. Unlike every other class in the game, the NG's turrets all spawn within close proximity of one another, making the Engineer the only class in the game capable of using the nest. Simply put, the nest is where the turrets live, and turrets are an engineer's best friend. The nest starts off small, but as I progress through the early rounds, I wrap my grubby potato hands around more and more wrenches and acquire more and more turrets. Much like the factory, the nest must grow, but more on that later. Priority buys for this run are engineering, luck, and harvesting. This class doesn't have to worry about stacking damage, other than that which comes from engineering, so my focus for the first part of the game will be on boosting my economy. Later, I will also focus on sustainability, but for now I'm just trying to get good drops and lots of money. Also books. I buy all of the books. Primarily because they're a cheap way to boost engineering, but also because I'm secretly hoping that one of them is a copy of The Hobbit. Waves 5 and 6 find me largely in the safety of my ever-growing nest. I'll occasionally venture out to pick up some materials, but only for a little while before hastily making my retreat back to the safety of the nest. Wave 7 is the wave with the eggs. The eggs hatch into large lads that are most unpleasant. It's typically best practice to smash these eggs before the large lads emerge. Let the large lads come. Let their mighty girthiness break upon my wall of mechanical allies. After the wave of the egg-based large lads comes the wave of the speedy large lads. They too fall before the might of the nest. However, it is in this wave that I realize the potential value of momentarily leaving my sanctuary. I begin to venture forth into the world beyond my nest for two reasons. One, well, these guys do die to my turrets, they'll also kill me if I just stand still. Two, I have a pocket factory buy, allowing me to turn any felled tree into a new turret friend. So, in an effort to ameliorate death and grow the nest, I begin making brief excursions into the wider world. Emphasis on brief, as I always very quickly kite the enemies back to my wall of death. Waves 9 and 10 are the money waves. They gatekeep the mid-game by spawning a bunch of enemies at the player. If you can handle them, you're rewarded with a fat stack of cash. If you can't, the run probably wasn't meant to be, and more than likely, you deserve your death and impending restart. Wave 9, the horde spawns, and they're inside the nest before I know it. Using the kiting strat mentioned earlier, I lure them away while my turrets pick them off, but I take some damage in the process. Luckily, I have some healing turrets to replenish all the blood I lost while I was waiting for the nest. I try to play it a little safer in Wave 10, sticking primarily to the confines of the nest. I'm a little stronger, and there are a little bit fewer enemies in this wave, so I emerge relatively unscathed. Wave 11 is the boss wave, and the big chungus baddie spawns directly in the center of the nest. Perfect. Instead of me being in the nest and the enemies running forth, my strat was to keep the boss in the center as my mechanical friends did their thing. I was not perfect, however. The chungus did a considerable amount of damage, and I found myself at death's door more than once in this round. I maintained the strat throughout the wave, but to mixed success. The nest was doing damage, but not enough to fell the threat. I survived the wave, but didn't kill the boss, leaving me without his sweet, sweet legendary drop. For the next couple of waves, I stayed well within the confines of the nest, venturing outside only to pick up the spoils of my fallen foes. At this point, the nest is growing nicely and easily dispatches the chaff of these waves. In the shop before Wave 14, I get offered a Sift's Relic and begin to salivate. This item grants an additional 3 armor and will attract all materials dropped to me instantly. Never again will I leave money on the table at the end of the wave, and never again will I be forced to leave the safety of the nest. I just have to make it through the horde on Wave 14, and I'll be blessed with the luxury of laziness. Once again, I spend most of the wave within the nest. I go out occasionally to pick up some materials and dream of the day when I will be able to eschew such paltry things as walking. I take some damage during this wave, but at this point my healing turrets are relatively robust, and a few spews of their healing goo, I stave off death and survive the wave. With the relic in hand, I progress through the next couple of waves. I now have no need to leave the nest, save for instances of impending death, and I stay primarily within the confines of my wall of turrets. During these waves, I acquire Tyler. He's a little guy on a pedestal who shoots lightning at my foes. I'm not sure if he's a person or a turret, but he scales with engineering, so I care not. Wave 17 is Big Chungus Part 2. My nest has grown substantially at this point, and I feel as if it may be up to the task of murking this boss. He charges to and fro, emitting projectiles as he goes. I do my best to dodge these, and lead him through the nest as often as possible in the hope that my turrets do their thing. After taking more hits than I would like, I eventually emerged victorious. Waves 18 and 19 are nothing more than a preamble to the final boss. I spend my time in the nest dodging hits when I can, getting covered in healing goo when I can't dodge, and relying on my relic to acquire the materials that I'm too lazy to go and pick up. In the shop, before the final wave, I commit the cardinal sin of passing on an opportunity to buy a book, and upon realizing my folly, feel deeply ashamed. On to the final two big chunkuses, however. They spawn in and are immediately assaulted by the full force of the nest. These largest of lads are taking considerable damage as they spawn their damaging balls of whatever their damaging balls are made of. I would like to say that I dodged them well, but alas, I did not. However, all damage taken was instantly restored by my healing fairies, and eventually, the final bosses fell, and I claimed victory. I breathe a breath of relief as my ordeal is over. Victory is mine, and it is all too satisfying. Glory this day is not mine to claim, however. The true friends are the turrets you made along the way, and I owe my friends a life debt. In the end, this is not a victory for myself, for I played but a small part. The credit for the success of this run belongs entirely to the nest.